This is VOA News. I'm David Byrd. Turkey and Russia agreed Tuesday to remove the Syrian Kurdish YPG militia to beyond 30 kilometers from the Turkish border, after which their troops would jointly patrol a narrower strip of land in a safe zone Ankara has long sought. Russian Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov said that beginning at 9 hours UTC on Wednesday, Russian military police and Syrian border guards would move in to facilitate the removal of YPG members and their weapons. He said that Russian military police and Syrian border guards will be sent to patrol the territory of Syria-Turkey border from the Syrian side outside of the Operation Peace Spring area. Later Tuesday, Russian President Putin called Syrian President Bashar al-Assad to reassure him that any agreement between Russia and Turkey would focus on fighting terrorism and would dismantle what he called any separatists' agendas on Syrian land. Meanwhile, U.S. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell introduced legislation Tuesday denouncing Turkey's invasion of northern Syria and prodding President Donald Trump to halt his withdrawal of U.S. troops from the embattled country. But the Kentucky Republican said that lawmakers should refrain from imposing sanctions on Turkey for now to avoid further driving a NATO ally into the arms of the Russians.
So I think there are a number of ways to address our foreign policy concerns. And if we have that debate in the Senate, I'd like for it to apply more broadly than just to the Kurds.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, meanwhile, is demanding briefings from the administration's top officials about plans for handling the Syrian crisis. The House of Representatives last week overwhelmingly approved a resolution opposing U.S. troop withdrawal. This is VOA News. The top U.S. diplomat in Ukraine testified Tuesday that President Donald Trump made the release of security aid to Ukraine contingent on Kiev publicly declaring it would carry out politically motivated investigations that Mr. Trump was seeking. According to a copy of the statement given by William Taylor, the U.S. Chargé d'Affaires in Ukraine, in a closed-door testimony to the three Democratic House of Representatives committees leading an impeachment inquiry against Trump, the president called for the Ukrainian president to investigate former Vice President Joe Biden and his son Hunter, as well as investigating a debunked theory about a computer server that supposedly is in Ukraine. Mr. Trump made the request after withholding nearly $400 million in aid to Ukraine. That aid was eventually released. Former Vice President Biden is a leading contender for the 2020 Democratic presidential nomination to face President Trump. Meanwhile, the president triggered outrage Tuesday by comparing the Democratic-led impeachment inquiry to a lynching. AP's Shelley Adler has more.
I wish I could say we were shocked.
Leisha Brooks, the outreach director with the Southern Poverty Law Center.
The president often uses inflammatory words to describe the troubles that he finds himself in, but this is particularly offensive.
To the White House, and another interpretation with spokesman Hogan Gidley.
He's not comparing himself to those dark times. Let's be very clear about what he's doing. He is receiving zero due process from Democrats on the Hill. That's what he's talking about. It's very clear.
Shelley Adler, Washington.
Britain's departure from the European Union was thrown into limbo Tuesday after Parliament rejected Prime Minister Boris Johnson's timetable for ratifying a new Brexit deal. Lawmakers voted 322 to 308 against the so-called program motion, which the government had proposed to quickly pass Johnson's legislation. After the vote, the Prime Minister said he was disappointed, but still aims to leave the EU at the end of the month.
One way or another, we will leave the EU with this deal to which this House has just given its assent. And I thank members across the House for that hard-won agreement.
Johnson said he would speak to EU members about their intentions and would pause the legislation until he hears back from Brussels. European Council President Donald Tusk said he would recommend that EU nations accept Britain's request for an extension. On Wall Street, markets closed lower after the Brexit vote, with all three major indices losing ground. For more, visit voanews.com. I'm David Byrd, VOA News.